It's The Weekly Show with David J. Maloney. This week, David talks to Kansas lead singer Ronnie Platt. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. I say normally because we'd usually shoot the show before a small studio audience at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, but we are still shooting from home due to renewed coronavirus concerns. We do hope to gain clearance to get back to our live-to-tape shows real soon. So, according to a new poll, 1 in 10 employees start a relationship at their office Christmas party. And of those, 25% have said that's how they met their spouse. The other 75% said that's how they lost their spouse. And according to another study, over the course of the average person's lifetime, they spend up to 100 days deciding what to watch on TV, or 200 days if they use the program guide. Senator Elizabeth Warren is escalating her ongoing feud with Elon Musk. In fact, last night, Musk's home was struck by a flaming arrow. Globe magazine is reporting that Bill Clinton is supposedly on his deathbed. This raises an interesting question. When Bill dies, will he be added to the Clinton body count? In Oakland, California, a pelican that was hooked in the throat and entangled in a fishing line is being nursed back to health. Sadly, the poor bird is so helpless, it's been named an honorary New Orleans pelican. Oh, and did you hear about this? In her new memoir, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, comes out as a lesbian. I think I'll wait for that movie. The Omicron variant is quickly becoming the dominant COVID strain around the world, 2 years after the virus was first discovered. And to think, this all started because some guy ate an undercooked bat. He couldn't have had a Big Mac? Nope, gotta eat the damn raw bat. What's crazier is it probably tasted just like chicken. I mean, if you're gonna eat something that tastes just like chicken, just eat the friggin' chicken and save the planet. Lastly, our neighbor actually had the nerve to knock on our door at 2:30 a.m. this morning. Can you believe that? It was lucky for him that I was still up playing drums. On tonight's show, we've got the lead singer for one of the most popular progressive rock bands in history. His band has produced 3 multi-platinum albums and several hit singles, including Dust in the Wind and Carry On Wayward Son. If you haven't guessed it by now, that band is Kansas, and their lead singer, Ronnie Platt, is here to chat about their new tour, their brand new live album, and all things Kansas. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. What was it like stepping into the studio for the first time with the band on the Prelude Implicit?
It came time to do my first vocal track, and Phil comes into the room and, he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, look, have fun with this, relax, have a good time, do the best you can. Just totally put it out of your mind that there's 2.4 million Kansas fans waiting for this right now. Gee, thanks, Phil. No pressure, So, but it's recording that album was intense. We just totally took over the entire studio in the separate rooms, and Rags would be in his room working on violin parts, and David Mannion at the time, he was in Studio B. We took the entire month of January off, and I think the first 2 weeks of February. So we had blocked out a total 6 weeks where we were not going to do any shows. It was just recording that album. The difference with the absence of presence, we were in the middle of touring. We tried to block out August and just be in the studio for August, but Keith, our agent, called Phil and said, hey, we got a good deal here. You don't want to pass this one up, the call of the road is there. And of course, you need to keep your cash flow going. So it was very intense with the absence of presence to be recording that album and then also going out and doing in gigs. It really, wow, it was high pressure. It really was.
And that's a great album, and I'd love to touch on it a bit. What was the thought process going into that record?
With the TPI, the Prelude Implicit being the first album that Kansas did in, what was it, 15, 16, 17 years, there was just such you could tell, and the kudos really go to Phil and Rich here. Talk about a band that has such a huge library of music to fall back on. Kansas doesn't need to do new music. There's still songs. I'm in the band 7.5 years now. There's still old Kansas songs I want to play that we haven't even touched on, So to add more original stuff to the library is just amazing. So I think it was just, it's part of keeping the ball rolling, of keeping things fresh. And like I said, kudos to Phil and Rich, who've been doing this for now nearly 50, did I say 50? 50 years, to have that hunger to still put out new music. It's really an amazing thing. I think it's just what they been doing their entire life, and to have such a long span without putting out anything new. Maybe they wanted to, or felt a little stagnant and wanted to do something new, because it re-energizes you.
Do you think was there maybe some tone or mood or theme that you guys wanted to hit with that album?
No, it's not a preconceived thing. It's every song, when you have the basic foundation, you start with that. But as you add stuff and you think of a part and you add it, get added, and it starts to take on a life of its own. So it's not like a preconceived end game where, okay, this song needs to be this. It doesn't work that way, at least not in Kansas. It kind of takes on its own life. The hardest thing is, when do you end? When do you stop adding parts? When are you satisfied with the song at that particular point to move on to the next one? I think that's the toughest thing, because even now when I think about, I play a little bass myself, and I was talking to Phil not too long ago. I'm like, God, I was listening to the song Refugee the other day. To me, in my producer mind, I think, God, that song is screaming for fretless bass. So even after the song's recorded, we're still coming up with ideas that, God, that would have been great in this song. And you just kind of like log it in the back of your mind, and, for future songs, for future projects.
And the thing about Kansas music is its complexity, which kind of goes with a lot of prog rock anyway. But in some ways, it's almost orchestral in that. And the funny thing is I don't know if I appreciated it as much from the albums themselves until I actually saw you guys for the first time live. When you see the band live and you hear the band live and all the different elements, and then you add the violin, and there's a lot of complexities to it. So I can see how you go. It's kind of like painting a picture. You go, when am I done? You know what I mean? When you're probably writing a song, right?
Probably the biggest compliment that I hear is after a show. I'm walking out, or I see a few times, and to me, it's the biggest compliment when I hear someone go, God, I wasn't expecting it to be that good. They were just, God, the musicianship was just so good. And that's one thing I love about this band is the diversity of the music. Sure, there's stuff that's really prog, but when you go back into the old library, you hear stuff that's very straight ahead, has a very 4/4 rock and roll, gosh, commercial, commercial appeal. I mean, uh, between Dust in the Wind and Throwing Mountains, you couldn't come up with two completely different songs, but Kansas hits everything in between. And that's really the most fantastic thing to me, because it really it gives you an open palette of, you're not being pressured from a record company to go, oh, this song was a hit, you need to write 5 more songs like this one. That would never happen in Kansas.
And you've been with the band, like you said, a while now. What have you learned about each band member, musically, and what does each band member bring to the table, whether it be live or in the studio? I'm going to give you the opportunity to I guess, praise everybody and plug everybody there.
Well, right off the bat, number one, my fellow bandmates are all perfectionists. And it's something how before every show, every date that we do, we're rehearsing. This band does not stop drilling. Even stuff that we've, miracles out of nowhere. We still drill that song in the rehearsal room. Everyone is really perfectionists and really at a high level of musicianship. So that's what I mean, it really is amazing. But I mean, Phil is an absolute perfectionist. Rich Williams, and when we were recording TPI, the Prelude Implicit, I remember being in the studio. We were in the lounge of the studio, and Rich is playing with an acoustic guitar. I've been around a few guitar players in my time, and Rich would come up with the most unique, I don't know how to describe it, just extremely unique. I'm like, gosh, where did that come from? I never heard anybody play something like that. His choice of chords were just so imaginative. He's really underrated. And then Billy's bass perfectionist, Billy's singing perfectionist. And then of course, David Ragsdale, which his violin, it's so funny. Sometimes I'll be watching Rags and forget what I'm doing on stage because he's a mesmerizing player. And I could see the audience just focusing.
Yeah, it's
it's like when Rags does one of his solos, I'm just looking at the audience focus on him, and he will just hypnotize you with his violin. And then now having Tom in the band, we call him the boy with the golden resume, being Meatloaf's keyboard player. He was Debbie Harry's keyboard player. He toured with Yes. Really? You tour with Yes? You're playing Rick Wakeman stuff, Tony Kaye stuff. You're no slouch if you're doing that. And not only is Tom an amazing player, he's an amazing sound designer, amazing writer. The song The River Sang, the song that we do live now that he sings, just intensity, super prog, and he's a super prog guy, and it's such a challenge and great stuff. But that's the band as a whole. It's a band of perfectionists that have never relaxed. It's from day one of me being in the band, this band does not stop rehearsing. And I don't think people realize that. But the other perspective too is, It's so funny when I hear, oh my God, Kansas, they're such a serious band. I picture them being such serious guys. Are you kidding? This band never stops telling jokes, never stops laughing, you know, making fun of stuff. When you spend this much, you have to amuse yourself, and we do a very good job of that. So it's a lot of fun.
Ronnie, we've got to go on a quick commercial break, pay the bills. Can you stick around to the other side?
Absolutely. I'm here. Let's come back.
Yeah, I was also curious, having gone through everything that you've gone through with music, is there anything that you would change about the industry if you could?
Uh, uh, the first thing that comes to mind, how old you are?
How old am I? I'm 50.
How old are you?
I'm 54.
Uh,
Yes.
54. I got a couple years on you. I'm 59. When I grew up and I went to the record store and I bought Left Overture. Sure, Wayward Son probably got me to buy the album. But when I brought that album home, I listened to that whole album, would keep on flipping it and listen to the entire side. And you really got a full feel for what that band was about, even though the music might be very dynamic. And it was like that for me with all bands, Chicago and Rush. Look at 2112,
That's one of my 5 Desert Island albums.
Absolutely. And it's just, you got into that whole album. You got to feel the flavor of that band and establishing that from an album and not one song. And that's the unfortunate thing about today is you go to iTunes, you hear a song you like, you go to iTunes and you buy that song. You're not getting a full spectrum of what that band is about and the other aspects of that band. I think that's an element that's really missing today.
It makes me wonder if a full theme album like 2112, like some of the stuff the Who did, whether or not that type of thing, because we have such shorter attention spans now, and because, like you said, it's
Right.
I want the one song I want dynamic, whether or not that type of thing could still be done today, or whether or not in some way that would almost be, in some bizarre way, be revolutionary, even though it was done in the 70s over and over and over again. In other words, would it be revolutionary today for somebody
Right.
to put out an operatic, essentially full-blown album piece?
The question is, do people have that attention span
Yep.
now? Are you able to, sit and relax and not have something visual?
Yeah, not be like, I gotta have this.
Right. I mean, God, I remember being a kid and getting Quadrophenia, and listening to that album, and just, that's another element that's missing, is letting your imagination paint the pictures instead of looking at your computer screen or your TV screen. It's really unfortunate. Now, 112, where, the whole one side was, different segments of a particular theme. I think the Kansas fans would enjoy that.
Now, you guys just released your live album, Point of No Return,
Yes.
Live and Beyond. Why was it important for you
Yes.
guys to make that record and release it when you did?
With the pandemic that went on, it didn't stop us at all from putting stuff out. I mean, Absence of Presence came out right in the middle of the pandemic, and I know Phil said that he talked to some, and why are you putting that out now? You can't you can't tour. You don't know when we're going to go back out and tour. How are you going to promote it? And it's like, oh, we wanted to give something to our fans, you know, in the middle of a hard time of not knowing, you know, gosh, when are things going to go back to the way they were, if they will. So it was important for us to put something out at that time. Point of No Return, Live and Beyond, same thing. You know, just want to give our fans something. And we're just over our heads at how good that came out. You know, it really has that live feel. You know, you have the ambient sound of the room and that live element. And it's something we're just really proud of.
Well, and that's important because we talked earlier about how much when people do see you live, they don't expect it to be, like you said, as incredible as it really is. And if I'm not mistaken, your front of house engineer is the same engineer who worked on the album. Why was that important for you guys?
Oh, Chad Singer. Well, let me tell you, that guy's worth his weight in plutonium. Because he's the guy that is seeing us every night, and he's seen us you know, there are times we're human. There's times when we might be off a night, but boy, there are just nights when things are clicking, when everyone's in sync and everyone is feeling good that night and on fire. Well, Chad's the one that is witnessing that and hearing that. So he is the best guy to engineer that live album and produce that live album, because he witnessed those particular songs at their best. And that's what we put on that album.
So your tour is in full swing, and the live Kansas experience is coming back to hundreds of thousands of folks across the U.S. Leg of this tour. What can our local audiences expect to see when you come to Pensacola, Florida, which is right here in our viewing area, on January 7th?
Outside of Chicago, where you know, we're right around the corner from 20 below zero weather, so Pensacola sounds really nice to me. You know, you're just gonna witness a band that loves what they do, still loves what they do, can't wait to hit the stage, and just gonna bring the best show possible to you. And if I can ask everyone in your viewing audience to please go to kansasband.com, visit the news, see what we're doing, but please visit our schedule. We're playing everywhere around the country. We're slammed with our schedule. Please come out and see a Kansas show. You won't be disappointed. It's really a great show to see.
Ronnie, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you guys on January 7th at the Sanger Theater in Pensacola, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Platt.
That's our show for tonight. A special thanks to Ronnie Platt of the band Kansas for joining us again. And thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, everyone.